Kane is in the building.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Buffalo Blueprint. I'm your host for tonight, Jake. You can find me at JakeFBData on Twitter. I am joined today by my guest, Joe DeRosa from Cover One. You can find him at Joe. You want to tell them where they can find you?
Yes, sir. You can find me on Twitter at show_DeRosa, and I appreciate you having me here. And also, this is not my usual setup, as if anyone who is familiar with the program watches, I am currently in a different location, parts unknown. So I appreciate you having me here and under the different circumstances.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm on the road right now, still traveling back from Buffalo, so this is not my normal setup. We are kind of going off the cuff here and winging it, but it's going to be a great show, and I really appreciate you joining me, especially last minute. I think I hit you up a couple hours ago, and you were nice enough to give me your time. So thanks again, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Happy to, man. I'm excited to talk ball with you, talk about this matchup, and any excuse I can have to talk about Bills football, I'm going to take it. So I appreciate you inviting me.
I'm right there with you. All right, well, let's pay some bills first, and then we'll get right into it. Remember when we took pride in the things we built, the things we grew? When we put aside small differences to support one another, we can do it again, and it's not as hard as you think. This Christmas, say no to fake trees. They're made of lead, plastic, and sweatshops overseas. Choose a traditional, sustainable, real tree grown by American family farmers in every state. We're not as divided as they say. Let's support each other again. The only way to ensure a real Christmas is with a real Christmas tree grown here in America. So this Christmas, don't fake it, go real. That way you will definitely have a really great Christmas holiday. Sponsored by the growers of real Christmas trees at Happy Holiday and Mackenzie Tree Farms.
That I just have to interrupt. That is a stellar read. That's
Thank
incredible. I
you.
didn't know where that was going. I also love that it's pay the bills, and yeah, that's awesome. That was not ready for the Christmas tree ad. That's so cool.
It's that time of year, holiday season. It's our official show sponsor now. They just joined us. So it's Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Farms. They're one of the largest Christmas tree growers in the country, across the country. And then you can find their trees at Lowe's, Home Depot, most grocery chains as well. Um, so yeah, we're happy to have them on board.
Solid. Definitely got to look into it.
All right. And then we have a new one too, a new network sponsor, W Energy Drinks. If you're looking for a clean energy without the jitters, please check them out. You can find them at w.gg. Use code DO for 10% off. Instead of having those energy drinks that give you the jitters or have way too much sugar, try a jitterless energy blend from W. They have some great flavors, so please check them out. It's w.gg and use code DO for 10% off. All right, man, let's jump into it. Normally, we start with going over the injuries. So let's start with the Bills injuries. Obviously, you got Teron Johnson out, Terrell Bernard ruled out. Um, at least Bernard's back at practice. He had 2 days of practice that I saw, Thursday and Friday. Um, it's sounding like he might be able to come back next week versus the Texans. Um, we'll see on that. Same with Taryn. I'm not sure if they want to rush Bernard back though, with the
Mhm.
pec injury, and maybe it'll be week 6 instead. Um, we'll see how that goes. You re-injure that, and your season's definitely over. So I could see them maybe
Agreed.
playing that a little slow. I know when Milano had a similar one, I think it was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they brought him back, but they only had him in, I want to say for running or like passing downs, and they limited
Yeah.
his run snaps and worked him back slowly. Um, but with the way Spector's playing, and if he's healthy, maybe they let him sit another week. I'm not sure that's an injury to mess with, but it was a great sign that he's back at practice.
Yeah, the practice designations for both of them is very encouraging, but I definitely understand being hesitant to bring him back. I would not. I even with the matchup, would not isn't the right term, but I definitely think with how he's trending, you don't want to rush it. And also, you are going to need him for the rest of the season, that longer stretch. Honestly, like when you think about how the fact that we saw him go down and you thought, oh no, it's another pec tear, we have to deal with this again, but rather a strain, it almost feels like he dodged a bullet. So don't tempt fate. Let him rest. It sucks to lose your starting Mike, but at the end of the day, like this is a necessary evil to sit him for the side. Same with Teron Johnson. I'm okay with it. Let the def do the talking. Let them keep the trend going because they're playing good football and honestly ride the hand that's hot right now.
I totally agree with both of those. The Taryn one's interesting because you know it was a cracked bone in his forearm, right? So if they feel like he can come back, then bring him back. A little different than a muscle pull or strain. Obviously, you
Mm-hmm.
have risk of breaking it again or re-injuring it, but I don't think it's the same as a pulled muscle, but the way the guys have played, with them out, is there a reason to rush them and increase any risk? So yeah, I agree with you. The only other one really to mention is Grable, Tylen Grable, or the swing tackle. They put him on IR. Luckily, having Ryan Vandermark there, who we thought was going to be the swing tackle anyways, is a nice luxury to have. So he'll
Mm-hmm.
step in as the swing tackle, um, and then hopefully Grable can heal up and come back. He was a really big surprise. I don't think anyone had him making the roster, or let alone as your sixth man, right?
Right.
So that was really nice beating Vandermark out, but to have Vandermark, there to step in is pretty huge luxury. And then they signed Will Clapp to the active roster, which is a
Mm-hmm.
nice depth piece
I
for
agree.
them.
Yeah, I definitely when I saw Will Clapp get the spot, I was happy about that. I have, a lot of confidence in SVPG as a backup center, or maybe even kicking Anderson over to that spot. But I
Yeah,
really like the fact that they've been using Anderson as that six man and that sixth OL piece. And I feel like if you ever see McGovern go down for whatever reason, it's nice to have a vet presence at center that can kind of shore that spot up if you want to continue running what you've been doing with Anderson in those heavy packages. So, you know, it sucks to lose Grable, absolutely, but Grable to me was always a project. I actually didn't even project him making the roster. It was very much a surprise when he did, but he's down. Hopefully, he heals up soon. But in the meantime, I think you have plenty of tackle, or I'm sorry, plenty of well, he is a tackle depth, and just really offensive line depth that can help keep keep the momentum going. Just for the stretch that he's going to be hurt. Didn't think they were going to call upon him much, anyways, either. So it sucks to lose him, but they'll survive, and he'll be back probably by the time he's ever needed.
yeah, it's a good point for the rotation because they really don't like moving, two guys to replace one guy. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think the way Edwards and McGovern have played, you don't really want to have to move them unless you absolutely have to. So, yeah, Klopp gives them that interior, ability to move around without having to move Alec Anderson, who I think they really liked in that 6-0
Yeah.
line jumbo tight end, and he's done a phenomenal job of that.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys have had some breakdowns on your network of him specifically, and yeah, he's been just moving bodies, man, and just finishing people.
Mm-hmm.
It's been great to see. So yeah, you definitely don't want to disrupt that and move him out of that role because he's had I think over 20 snaps now in the 3 games. So
Mm-hmm.
a nice role. For Baltimore, they had a couple. The Andrew Voorhees is doubtful.
Mm-hmm.
The left guard that can be significant if he has to go out. I know he's a young guy they really like. Tyler Linderbaum's questionable. It sounds like he's going to play their center. Really, really quality young center. I think it was like a shoulder for him or something. So something to watch. If he's limited at all or not at 100%, but he's a very quality piece for them. And then Jalen Armour Davis has been ruled out. I believe he's been like their rotating as their third, fourth corner. and he's been ruled out. Otherwise, it was pretty clean for them on the injury report.
Yeah, I also saw today that Michael
Mm.
Pierce got demoted or downgraded to doubtful for the game too. Just
Oh
something with
wow,
his
okay,
shoulder that popped up. And
wow.
I noticed that one specifically as a really key thing because primary nose tackle, someone that they rely on, especially in run defense. And I think when you're talking about this matchup, and we're to get deeper into it, but that's a significant loss. Even though I think that they have good depth on their D line, like, having that consistent run stopping presence and someone that helps with their pass rush, just to not have that in a game like this, I think that's something the Bills might exploit in this matchup. So I'm definitely keeping an eye out for that.
No, that's a great piece and a great segue to our next segment as far as, their run defense has been, sixth, they're ranked sixth right now, and he's a big piece of that. Their interior is really quality. And so, to miss a piece like that really hurts, their rotation. So I'd be really interested to see if he ends up being out or even limited, right? I mean, a shoulder as a
Hmm.
D tackle is pretty damn important. So that could be a key piece. Um, they're, uh, they're the opponents they've played running the ball haven't been the best. The run offenses they face, so I'm interested to see how we stack up. We'll go more into that a little bit for the in the trench warfare segment. Um, so I wanted to bring up a couple things for trends that I've been seeing. So between the two teams. So offensively, they both run almost the same amount of run and pass. So Buffalo's at 46.5%, Baltimore's at 45.2% for a run, and then pass is 53.5 for Buffalo and 54.8 for Baltimore. I found that a little interesting. I know game script dictates that, but I figured Baltimore would be a little more run heavy.
Hmm.
Um, but that was interesting. They actually run less than Buffalo. I know we've had some interesting game scripts the last two, right? Especially the fourth
Right.
quarters. Um, so that can obviously dictate it. And then for EPA per run, Baltimore's at 0.16 and Buffalo's at minus 0.08, um, which has been interesting. I think a lot has been talked about in Bill's spaces as far as the run game and how effective it's been, and should we run more? Should we run less? And I think a lot of it is it's situationally effective as far as what Brady is drawing up, right? He's
Hmm.
trying to show looks and formations to dictate matchups to pass out of. And when they're presenting light boxes, then he's not afraid to run into them. Where previously we weren't able to, right? We were struggling to run into light boxes, or we just weren't willing to. And Brady's very willing to run into light boxes. Um, so it's hard to dictate just the solid number like that, because also the game scripts, right? The last two games we've just been parking the anchor and just running the clock
Yeah.
essentially at the end. So that definitely skews the run. But as far as pass goes, the Bills are number one pass team per EPA with 0.53, and Baltimore's at a 0.05. So
Hmm.
big edge definitely to Buffalo in the pass game. For the run game, Baltimore's actually the number one rushing offense. Um, they average 5.9 yards per carry. Um, so I think that's going to be obviously a big key for this game. I think a lot more is made of the Bills' run defense, or lack thereof in some people's eyes. Um, the Bills invite you to run. They wanted you to run,
Hmm.
especially against Miami, right? They are fine with Miami running all day. Also, Buffalo's been running a lot of five-man boxes and just, yeah, daring you to run into
Hmm.
them, and six-man boxes. So I think the run game numbers are a little skewed as far as the Bills' run defense. I think they're 22nd right now, ranked run
Yeah.
defense. But a lot of that again is they're okay with that. They're just trying to limit explosives and keep everything in front of them.
Hmm.
Um, but I think for this one is it's going to be, the personnel packages that they're running. So Baltimore runs the most 12 personnel at 33.8%. They also have the number one EPA out of 12 personnel at 0.38%. So that's where I'm wondering, with the Bills running so much nickel, are they going to have to adjust to man up to that better, to a heavier front? Or are they going to be just willing to say, all right, let's see how this goes, in 12
Yeah.
personnel versus nickel. Um, Baltimore runs 11 personnel at the first rate. So one of the least at 33%, right? Not a big surprise if you're running the most 12
Kind
personnel.
of expected. Yeah.
Right. But it's kind of a clash of what the Bills want to run personnel wise on defense, right? And then Baltimore runs the fourth most 21 personnel, so two backs, one tight
Mhm.
end, and then they run the second most 22 personnel at 10%, two backs, two tight ends, and then the most 20 personnel um, at 3.9%. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight those as trends when we get into Trent Warfare next, and then mismatch meter as far as you know, it's a clash of styles, right? Baltimore wants to run heavy packages, Bills
Yeah,
want to run light packages. So are we going to adjust? And that's something definitely we can touch on um,
for sure.
going forward.
Yeah, I definitely think that's great that you bring that up only because they are so known for their two tight end sets. And I think one wrinkle that also gets added to the fact that they run it so frequently is when you have to deal with them passing out of those two tight end sets, because I think they can, let's just say, you're a poor rushing defense and you're not able to, one, be able to defend the interior if you have Derrick Henry running through it, or if you're talking about some of the RPOs that Baltimore runs, which that to me is the most daunting task when you face that offense because of how multiple they can be and how tricky it is to read and react in real time. Despite Sean McDermott being able to do that in times past, now you're adding this other layer of it where Likely and Andrews are on the field at the same time. And, like we talked about with the Bills that are trying to throw out their condensed formations and show you like maybe some of their run looks that end up being passes and keeping the defense kind of honest. Baltimore has the ability to do that as well. But like you bring up with the Bills base nickel, that is going to be a bit of a challenge because with Teron Johnson not being there, despite Cam Lewis playing very good defense and very good ball at the slot corner position, it still is a tall ask to be able to kind of match them with personnel and be able to do it. However, Sean McDermott has in seasons past, and I am very interested to see if he tries to add any more wrinkles or if he really just sticks with that identity of, hey, this is what we run and we're inviting you to run. But, when crunch time comes around and you're not in a favorable third down, that's when we're going to make you throw and that's when we're going to bear down and try to take the middle of the field away. So, really, that 12P point that you bring up is what I've been looking at the most with them because their tight ends are dangerous. I know Andrew's fantasy managers are pissed. I'm one of them. So I can definitely say I'm disappointed with that output, but
Yep.
he's still a threat. Isaiah Likely's a threat. When you have those two pieces plus a Derrick Henry in your backfield, and you could add in the wrinkle of like Isaiah Flowers going downfield, like that's a tough offense to stop, and you're just going to have to hope that you guess right and that you don't take the bait, whether it's on play action or whether if it's a Lamar keeper. So definitely, I think that's probably the biggest red flag when you talk about what these Ravens are going to do and what you have to try and defend on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think for me, and Whittle brings up a good point of them, passing over 7 yards, passing down the field. What they've been doing is they've been going, over the middle and in the flats. It's
Mm-hmm.
dumping it off to Likely or to Hill, the running back, Justice Hill, out of the backfield. And then it's been hitting the stuff over the middle. They don't really want to
Right.
pass outside the numbers in downfield. So I'm wondering if this is the kind of game where you just say, okay, Rasul, okay, um, Benford, you're out there on your own, and then you bring the safeties, you pinch them in a little bit, or bring one down in the box, and then you have the linebackers try to clog the middle as well because you can take away the middle of the field in this game. I think that gives the Bills a major advantage
Mm-hmm.
as far as defending the Ravens. And then obviously also you got to worry about Lamar running too, and so that's what
Yep.
worries me is containing him while still getting pressure on him. We saw against Kyler week one, they tried to contain him, right? Contain Rush in the first half. That just didn't work, right? He just outran the spy. Um, and we got hit all day back there, right? And then in the second half, they changed it up and started bringing some pressure on him and started just letting the DNs get after him. And that's when you saw it shift a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested to see, like, this is the first true test for me to see how much Babbage influences this defense and how much it changes from things we saw in the past. Because I feel like McDermott has handled Lamar well in the limited times we faced him, and
Mm-hmm.
and he's done a good job. But this is a little bit of a different offense for me that he has to face, and so I'm wondering how they play it because we don't necessarily have the bodies to try to run a base defense. Your third linebacker and even your fourth linebacker, are they're playing. They're already on the field. So who's going to be your next linebacker that you bring in? And then, like you said with Taron, he's not in, so you already have Cam Lewis in. And so, are they going to do dime looks this game, or does that go away? And Ingram's, been really good when he's come in and made some big splash
Hmm.
plays. So does that go away this game, or do they bring in a bigger body like Ingram, um, to help, instead of Cam Lewis? I'm not sure. I think one of the strengths of Cam Lewis is more of his run defense or in the box than necessarily his coverage skills. So
Right.
yeah, I think all that is going to be really interesting, and that's what I'm really excited about this game because I want to see what wrinkles Babbage has. What does he bring, to try to combat that? Because I don't think they're just going to line up and play the same defense they've been playing.
No, for sure. Well, you know, I'm torn on it because I do think they might try to implement more dime. Maybe they'll try to go with a base 4-3 at times, but the nickel is the bread and butter, and it is something that they're
Yep.
able to defend with. And I do see a world where maybe they just try to rely on it and they have Cam Lewis maintain his spot because I think Cam Lewis really is an aggressor when he gets into the backfield. And even if it's not the size match that you want, if Cam's
Right.
sniffing it out, recognizing what you're trying to throw at the perimeter, it might not matter because also, a key thing is just trying to disrupt it. So I think for Cam Lewis, if you are that nickel save or excuse me, nickel corner, or even if you have Ingram do it, or even if you want to give Cole Bishop his chance to do it, like these are guys that yes, they don't have the size, but if we're talking about maybe Lamar trying to sneak over to the boundary, if we're talking about maybe Justice Hill bouncing outside, I like that matchup a bit. It's really more of like, how are you using Derrick Henry in this game? But I feel like they want Derrick Henry to be that true, like, go through the formation, like interior runner and not try to let him bounce outside too much. And if he does, that could be problematic. But it seems like the Ravens aren't doing it as much as they, I think, should be doing. And maybe something where if they tend to avoid that tendency, that kind of works to the Bills' advantage. But for all we know, that could be something Munkin is like, well, hey, they're offering it to us, so let's punish them with this physical presence downfield. So, a lot of layers to their offense that I think are going to be tough. But yeah, I would very much be interested to see if they try to break out of the nickel a lot in this game. But that feels like a break glass in case of emergency move that I'm just not 100% sure if they'll try to do frequently in this game. Like, I'm not saying they won't do it at all, but like, trust your guys, trust the formation, because ultimately, if Cam Lewis is snuffing out the run, it could still be successful.
No, I think that's a great point. I think for me, I think they're going to stick to the nickel. I want to see, I think it's going to be more on the back end what they do. I think it's
Right.
going to be more about how they move the safeties. Are they going to do more, cover three but dropping, Cam
Hmm.
Lewis and Rasul Douglas as your deep guys and having, Hamlin and Rapp in the box, instead, drop it, in the hook to curl areas and things like that. I think they're going to get more creative with clouding and muddying the picture, inside the box, and then also allowing them to come up and defend the run. So I think that's where I really want to see what Babbage does because he's had some really creative disguise and some really creative drops, against
Hmm.
Miami and last week against the Jags. I mean, he had Trevor Lawrence so fooled so many times in that game. So I'm interested to see what they do with Lamar because you can do that where you're showing, cover zero or, you have everyone up and then you're just dropping different guys. But the whole point is just to get people down in the box to help
Hmm.
against the run. But they're dropping back, in case of a pass as well. So I'm
Yeah.
interested there. And then, uh, I want to see, the front, I want to see what this front can do against, an O line that's been struggling, as
Right.
Baltimore line has not been great. And so for me, I want to see, how this D line goes. This is a game where Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver really need to step up and control the interior, and help out, Spector and Dorian Williams. If they're getting pushed off the ball, I mean, we're in trouble. And so that's where I really is big for me is this D line. And, you got to take advantage of this right side. I think with Falele and now Rosengarten having to start at right tackle, I think that's where you can really get after them. That's their weak side to me. Um,
Hmm.
Macari's having to move from right tackle to left guard, and then even their center, Linderbaum being banged up. So, uh,
Yeah.
you gotta get push. You gotta get Derrick Henry before he breaks the line because if he gets a head of steam, that's where things get in trouble. You try to leg tackle him when he's
Yeah.
running, and it's over. So. Yeah, for me,
Yeah.
for
Definitely.
the Bills for this game is the D line.
Mhm. No, I completely agree. And You look at that Cowboy matchup, and it was just their interior defensive line was terrible. And I honestly think, like, you look
Yeah,
at Mozzie Smith from that game to a week later, and something clicked because he seemed to sort of figure it out. But for
yeah,
most of that game, I mean, it was tough to watch. Their interior was getting pushed so easily, and it was giving so much room and space for Henry to just gain acceleration and steam, go down the field, get like once you get that man in the second level, like Godspeed, like getting that
yeah,
down is just so difficult. And it looked like the Cowboys were just inviting him to do it. And I think that I have more faith in the Bills' interior D line, vastly more faith, I should say. I've been very complimentary of their defensive line. But I think in this matchup, especially when you talk about kind of how they've been able to maintain their gap integrity in that interior D line, Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver are a great pairing together. I think both are capable of shedding doubles and just getting backfield penetration. And I think that is really the crux of how you can win this matchup because like this is kind of how I see you beating Baltimore's offense in general is I think that Lamar can throw the ball well. I think he's a good thrower of the football. But I think the true way that this offense soars is when they're allowed to be multiple by having that RPO game clicking and just being able to constantly go and the threat and guessing of which back takes what or if Lamar
yeah,
keeps and goes. All of that
yeah.
matters. Any way you can make them one dimensional to me is the way you beat them. And if that
Mhm.
starts with this interior D line just murking up everything in that spot to be able to slow Henry down, get him in the backfield, be able to just like clip the wings and all of a sudden, okay, well, now like this is getting snuffed out because we can't get enough push up front. Now we have to rely solely on these perimeter runs, and that'll be predictable because you've seen the Bills been able to bear down on that over time in every game. Now you take away the RPO entirely because the run isn't effective. And that to me is when you start playing into the Bills' hand because you said it. They're not going to throw to the boundaries. They don't want to. And that's one of the Bills' strengths. So they're going to try and test them in the middle of the field. But again, if you're selling out to do that, it's a different story than just exploiting a matchup. It's panic. We can bring extra guys if we need to. We could show different looks. So really it all stems from that interior D line. And I think that this Bills D line is significantly better than, you know, I don't want to say it's not, Kansas City has Chris Jones. It's an elite level talent. There's a lot of talent there, but definitely better than Dallas is. And I would wager like they probably have like an equal front to Vegas. Christian Wilkins is still an elite talent though, but I think
Yeah.
Daquan and Ed are a great pairing. I think that they can fare well in the run game. I think they can defend it well, and I think that's really problem in my eyes what the coaching staff is trying to just hammer home and really get sound before this game because you affect things in the trenches, you affect things in that first area, like everything else is going to go out of time and out of sync for Lamar Jackson. And I think that's how you have to stop them is take away what makes them feel comfortable, take away their rhythm, and all of a sudden you have a game that's playing in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, no, I think those are great points. It's hard to gauge like this Ravens running offense as well. Like, yeah, they're number one, but their last two games are against Dallas and the Raiders. The Raiders are the worst rush defense in football.
Mm.
And Dallas is terrible. Their front is awful. So for me, it's hard to say like how good is this Ravens run game. And then the Chiefs, I feel like even last year, like the way you got the Chiefs was you ran the ball at them. And so um, I'll be interested to see how we do. I'd be shocked if we gave up as much rushing yards as either of those three teams. I think it was 153 was the least, and that was the Chiefs. So
Damn.
we'll see. Um,
It's crazy.
yeah, right. That's the least they've had. Yeah, and then the other point I thought you made, which was really good, is Lamar is a rhythm and timing thrower. People, knock him so much, but he's like almost like a West Coast style. If he can get in a normal drop back and throw in rhythm, he's very accurate,
It's
and
dangerous.
he's kind of like Tua as far as that skill set, like he's very decisive and very accurate when you get him off rhythm and he's not hitting his back foot and throwing the ball, that's where he really gets into trouble. And he kind of panics a little bit. Yes, when he rolls out, he's dangerous again when he's under control. But if his footwork gets a little out of there, that's where he gets real inaccurate. So I think that's part of the timing of that RPO game, right? If the linebackers aren't having to crash in, if we're not having to send extra bodies to crash in and sell out,
Yeah.
then I think that's where you can really disrupt that pass game. And
Hmm.
I think that's where Buffalo really needs to focus because yes, you want to limit the run game, but I think they're okay with allowing some running. It's just you don't allow the explosive runs. And then the pass game, you really just want to make it muddied and difficult for Lamar in the middle. Don't give him anything easy, and just try to get him in long and late downs. I
Hmm.
think they're okay with letting Baltimore drive, and have long drives and earn it, but don't give him chunk plays. Don't give him anything easy, and I think they're okay with that.
Yeah, and that's it's really going to boil down to the tight end matchup too, because that to me is where they can either take away their biggest strength and hold them down, or they can get killed. Because if you can contain the use of Likely and Andrews in this passing attack, I feel like their receiving core, and I love Zay Flowers, and I've been optimistic about Bateman. I want him to succeed in this league,
Well,
but they aren't the greatest over the top weapons. Like they aren't the greatest separators. They aren't the greatest as when it like they are an offense to me that I find has limitations. And for that reason, I think it's just in the passing attack specifically, if you're able to reduce the effectiveness of Andrews and Likely by being able to maybe show some disguising and all of a sudden take that middle of the field read away, but it's something where it's deep enough where just the throw to the flat isn't going to be enough because that'll get bared down from distance. That's how you do it. So a lot of ways you can beat them, but obviously with Lamar, it's a challenge. I know McDermott's defended them well, but that's still a challenge in itself to be able to go in there and contain one of the most explosive, dynamic quarterbacks in the NFL.
yeah, for sure. I think it's more about limiting him and not stopping him necessarily. But yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
you bring up a great point about their receivers. I mean, Bateman's one of the biggest enigmas I think I've ever seen. I mean, his separation score is unbelievable. Like he's seemingly always open, but he doesn't get targeted. So I obviously don't study the Ravens, so I haven't looked at the film or anything. But as far as analytics go, I mean, he's always in the top 10 as far as separation score, and they just don't target him. And then Zay, you would think would fit in because you just get him the ball in space and let him go. And so I don't know. I mean, part of that is I think Lamar is a tough, quarterback to play for wide receivers as far as getting into a rhythm. He's not a volume passer. That's not a volume offense.
Right.
Again, outside the numbers and down the field is not really what they focus on or what they want to do. You're having to run block a lot. It's run first, so I think it's tough for a lot of guys to get in there and to thrive in that type of offense. And then again, they want to feature the tight ends and the running backs out of the backfield. So yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's on Spector and Dorian in the middle, and how do they play?
Mm,
How do they cover? And then it's going to be on Cam Lewis and his safeties. How do they cover? When they're lined up against tight ends and running backs. And yeah, if they can tackle and clog the middle of the field, I think that's half the battle. So, how about we
absolutely.
flip it around and talk about the Bills' offensive line versus this Ravens defensive line?
Excited,
Um,
man.
So for me, it's they have Van Noy on the outside and Owe. Owe, is the speed threat, very fast, but hasn't quite put together the pass rush repertoire. And then Van Noy is just the wily vet with some speed to power. He's been racking up some sacks, but I feel pretty good with Dawkins and Brown on the outside. For me, it's more the interior of this game. Like you said with Pierce, they got Jones, who I really like out of UConn, and then
Yeah,
Madubuike is really good on the interior too. Um, so I think it's going to come down to the interior, O line. Can they get some push in the run game? And even with Alec Anderson coming in and doing some double teams, some triple teams on the interior, and then pass rush. Can those guys hold up? They've been struggling a little bit between McGovern and Torrance with stunts on that right side. So is that something
hmm,
they've cleaned up over this break? And um, they did well against Jacksonville, so I'm interested to see how we hold up there. Um, they're the sixth best run defense, so
yeah.
I'm interested to see if we can run the ball on them. Because is it going to be a game where they just let Josh pass? They're one of the worst pass defenses. I think they're 31st. They allow the most
That's that's
explosive.
shocking to me.
Right,
That's
and
so
they
shocking
allow
to
the
me.
most explosives in the pass game as well. That's the opposite of Ravens teams we've seen. They've normally been real stingy. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I think is that an area where they try to exploit? I'm not sure. I'd be interested to see if they turn into pass first for this game. I mean, you saw it against Jacksonville, but that was mainly because of all the man coverage, right? And Josh
Mm.
just eats against man coverage. Um, I don't think the Ravens are going to be running near that much man coverage. So, um, I'm interested to see, if we can run the ball. Because if you turn us into one dimensional, that's going to be tough for this Bills offense. They've been so damn efficient. But I will say Brady has
Yeah.
been really, really tendency heavy. So he's been
Mhm.
showing one thing, like spamming it and showing it hard, and then the next game he pivots off that, right, and kind of fakes it out. So I'll be really interested to see if they, what counters he has to that, because he's definitely been showing some things and just hasn't countered off them. You saw a little bit of that last game as far as with some play action off the sixth O lineman. They bring Alec Anderson in, bring Josh under center, and they've been
Mhm.
running like 98% under center was 98% a run for the Bills. And then against the Jags, you saw a couple times where they play action off of that and just had the two wide receivers go out. So I'll be interested to see what kind of wrinkles they got for this game because in the first two games it was run heavy on first down. It was like 71% or something. And then against the Jags, they pivoted
Yeah.
off of that. So um, I definitely think Brady will have some wrinkles for this defense. You have any guesses for what he's going to try to do?
Oh man, it's so tough because the talent goes in every level, and that's why I was saying it's so shocking
Hmm.
that they're 31st, and I don't buy it. Like
Right.
obviously the results speak for it, but I don't
Yeah.
buy that that's going to be a long-term season trend. I think really I did expect like an early season regression from the Ravens defense, but only because of the turnover in the coaching staff and them probably having issues in communication and trying to figure out new ways and just getting like those calls down and maybe that biting them in the butt for the first few weeks, which is why like I was happy that that Ravens matchup was earlier in the season and not like in December or something crazy like that. And it seems like there's been times where that's happened, but also maybe just like still feeling it out and like there's obviously some lapses that are going on, but they're still talented as hell. Like we cannot deny that on all levels of their defense, they have a very daunting pass rush presence. I love their linebackers. I absolutely obviously Roquan Smith, that speaks for itself. He's a phenomenal at his position. But Trenton Simpson was a prospect that I wanted the Bills to
Hmm.
draft as the what I originally thought was going to be the middle linebacker replacement. Then obviously Terrell Bernard stepped up, but Trenton Simpson was a ton of fun just because he felt like he was almost like this hybrid like box safety linebacker type because he was so freaking athletic. He flies to the ball. He's so explosive, especially as a pass rusher. Like the way he can shoot a gap is intense and just like now that they have him and he's taking over that role that Patrick Queen left behind, to me, it's like even if there might be a little bit of a drop off just from the experience now, that's not going to last. I think he's going to do phenomenal in that role, especially next to Roquan Smith, where now like when you're not playing that green dot position, there's a little less like processing work. Like obviously you still have to do it, but like a little less on your plate, which allows an athletic guy like Simpson to thrive. And I actually fear of him probably more than most in this matchup just because again, like when I think about how this team is going to try and defend Allen and the Bills, I think what they're really going to try and do is just take those middle of the field options away. Guys like Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, like the ways that Josh Allen has been able to kind of get his easy buttons. I feel like that's where they try to bear down in the passing game because one, this Bills offense has been able to be explosive, but they've been able to be explosive in those chunk plays from yards after catch. When you're talking about an offense that isn't airing it down the field as often as they used to, like that's not their identity. I find that Ravens having athletic second and third level guys means, hey, let's bear down and take the spot away from Josh Allen and try to contain him to the outside or make him scramble or make him press and try to make a mistake. And a guy like Trenton Simpson and Roquan Smith, like those two, I feel like are the recipe to doing so. So I want to see how Joe Brady tries to bait them into maybe being overtly aggressive. And I wonder if that's going to be something along the lines of maybe like uptick in motion, try to get a read on what they're doing. If they're sitting in a disciplined zone, then maybe using that motion piece as a way to kind of stress and confuse people at their spot and be able to break someone open. Maybe using Josh's legs as an answer and trying to just like take advantage of any space they may give you. It's a really mixed bag and a tough defense to predict, but really, if this offensive line holds up against their pass rush, I think they're going to have plenty of success because you'll give Josh all the time in the world to see what he needs to see. And they're not a blitz heavy team. Jake, I believe they're 24% or 24th in the league in blitz percentage. So they're not sending more than four men too often. It's just a mix and match of who they want to send with guys like Van Noy, Simpson, Roquan, and then, of course, those really talented defensive linemen. But now with Michael Pierce potentially not playing in this game, you have to ask, like, okay, does that expose maybe the chance for you to be able to run up the middle and be able to get those chunk yards and maybe use Ty Johnson and Ray Davis's sturdy frames a little bit more? And all of a sudden, you're getting like short downs and distances for Josh Allen where those motion pieces become way more threatening and the threat of play action shots become more threatening. I think for me, play action is really the thing I want more of. And they did it in that Jacksonville game. And I think they try to do it again because ultimately, I think that's just going to give Josh time, the ability to see the field, and also just a way to kind of bait the defense into maybe trying to be aggressive to man the run because they think the Bills are going to throw it at them. And all of a sudden, there's space created for a downfield threat. So, long-winded answer. There's a lot of ways that this defense could, stymie the Bills' offense. They're very talented. I have a lot of respect for them, but I think really it's more of if you can successfully exploit that missing piece in the interior or bait them to try and like defend the run and hold the ball and give Josh the ability to ball fake, use his legs, roll out. That's where you can have success and ultimately keep a Ravens team guessing and get them off balance. Where even if they have the talent, it might not matter because the Bills are just ahead of them in a coaching perspective.
No, I think you brought up some great points. I mean, I'm interested about the play action thing. I mean, obviously, I always want more play action. Josh is usually the best or top three best off play action in the league. I think this year he's number one so far. Um, I do wonder if it's more of like a man thing. They like running play action against man looks more than they do against zone looks.
Right.
But
Yeah.
for me, it's more about the pre-snap motion that you mentioned because they're in top five in pre-snap motion. I think they might even be third right now. It's over 70% of pre-snap motion. And for
Yeah.
Josh, I think that's one of the underrated things for him is how cerebral he is. And he that's given him so many tells about what the coverage is pre-snap. And this Ravens defense, I think, is where they've been getting had is in miscommunication issues. And Roquan just looks slow this year. He looks a little thick, is a nice way to put it. He's not moving as well as he has. And so, with some of the new guys they have in there, like Trenton Simpson, and then, their third corners had to come in and out with Wiggins, being young as
Mm-hmm.
well. And Marcus Williams just hasn't been playing well. He's had some coverage busts. So I'm interested to see like how much pre-snap motion they try to do to try to cause miscommunication issues and confusion in the secondary and in the middle of the field because the Ravens, you would think they'd be strong down the middle, especially with Hamilton and how they use them all over. And they just haven't been this year. They've been one of the worst teams over the middle of the field so far this year. So I'll be interested to see if they can clean that up because they have not been good against tight ends. Ferguson
Yep.
got them, and,
Yeah.
and then also I think it was Michael Mayer who got him too for the Raiders. So um,
Broctopus, man. Can't forget about Brock,
yeah,
gym leader Brock, man. That's
yeah,
that dude was
Brock,
torching him against in
yeah,
that
Brock
home
Bowers.
opener.
Yep. So I'm interested to see like have they cleaned that up? Is that an area where we can expose them? I know Brady really likes to call stuff over the middle,
Mm-hmm.
um, but also they like those quick action throws. Those quick outs. To receivers and tight ends. To the boundary as well. So can they get the Ravens moving horizontally? Right, stress them horizontally first and then start getting them in the middle is something I'm interested in because they've been showing a lot of looks, with these quick throws to the outside. And
Yeah.
the Ravens like to play aggressive with their outside corners. Both their corners have been playing well, Humphrey and Stevens. And so I'm wondering if that's something that's a look they show them, and
Mm-hmm.
then they use that to attack over the middle. So you have Kincaid or Knox or someone coming over the middle while you're still running the same play to the outside. Josh fakes it and then he goes in the middle and the middle's now open because you have guys flying to the outside. So that's a little wrinkle. I'm wondering if they're going to use this game because, yeah, like you said, you would think they would be very strong down the middle, but so far this year they've not. And so is that
Yeah.
this a game where you get the running backs out in space or Samuel in the backfield? And you cause some miscommunication, multiple backs in the backfield, with Samuel back there and Cook or Davis or Ty Johnson with Samuel and you send them in different directions and just try to cause miscommunication. Um, so
Yeah.
I'm real interested in that because that's where this Ravens defense has been had is miscommunication errors in the second level and the third level.
And real quick, one thing too, we saw it a bit in week one, a little bit in week two. the tight end in the backfield alignment that Joe Brady has been running too. That's something to
Yep.
me that if you're talking about trying to get more physical, that's one way to do it, especially if you're talking through the middle. If you feel confident in maybe having Gilliam take that spot, because Gilliam's playing fullback tight end hybrid, or maybe if you want to have Knox run it, or maybe what you do is showcase it early as a blocking formation and send that tight end to chip somebody or go through the middle of the formation and have your back follow
Yeah.
him. And then eventually use that as a threat where they think that's actually going to be a blocking look, and all of a sudden your tight end leaks out. That would be a lot of fun too. And I feel like these are just like the things that we're seeing from Joe Brady that have made me far more optimistic that they really can tackle any type of defense. But this is a matchup that if you really have a lot of success against the Ravens defense, like I understand the metrics aren't great. I know they aren't, but I still believe they're an incredibly talented unit. And by year's end, we'll have conversations about them. Dog agrees. We'll have conversations about them like being maybe a top 15, top 10. I genuinely believe that you can use this game as a baseline that they could take on anybody. Like, and I mean like work anybody, be able to like exploit anybody schematically. Because I just find that there's so much athleticism in this defense. And like the guys you're describing, like, Roquan Smith like playing a little slower than he usually does, or maybe like, I've heard Kyle Hamilton being used around all over the defense instead of one spot, and that's kind of limited him at times. Like, I don't believe that's a sustainable thing for this Ravens defense. I have so much respect and credit for them that I feel that if you are actually able to like talk about what you were talking about with attacking the middle of the field and using Curtis Samuel in different ways, Khalil Shakir in different ways, like ways to just try and create conflict and make him take the bait. You can do that. I think you could do it against anybody. And one real thing that I also want to bring up too, how much more do we see Keon Coleman used as a power slot guy this time? Like, how much
Yeah.
more do they decide to use him a bit more horizontally across the field? Kind of like that play action shot where even though it was deeper, it was a deeper cross, and all of a sudden, like,
Yep.
I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like you get this guy in his frame in open space, he's going to be a menace to take down. And that was one of the things I bought into after they drafted him because he's not a true conventional speedster. But if you're getting this guy, moving laterally and he has the ball in his hands with acceleration, that's an incredibly difficult thing to stop and defend against. So just one more thing I wanted to throw in there because I'm really wondering if you see more usage out of Keon Coleman, assuming he, shows up to the game on time. And if he if they would want to play around with his role and maybe make them into thinking that this guy's going to be an ancillary boundary piece, but all of a sudden he's getting quick work and you're just like, well, now we got to defend this. And that opens things up for our tight ends. Like that's something I hope Joe Brady tries to throw out because again, just one more piece of the pie of the Bills offense that you'd have to defend. That would be incredibly difficult for really any defense.
Well, I think that's a great point. That's definitely something we haven't seen as far as we haven't seen him get those quick throws. They've run with Takir and Kincaid, but that's a guy, coming out. That was one of the best things about him was his yak ability. And, I mean, he was a punt returner in college. You would have never thought of that looking at him. But
Yeah.
yeah, after the catch, he's great. So I'm interested in that as well. And then some things that we saw in training camp that we haven't seen yet as far as they were lining up like Matt Collins, Knox, and even Coleman on the outside in like a trips, and then they would motion Samuel out there and do like a bunch set with Samuel being the back, behind those three, and they were throwing it, quick throw to Samuel, and then with those three guys blocking, like we haven't really
That's
seen that in the
insane.
game yet. Right, right, but that is some size out there. And then the other thing that they showed last week was they did it with Shakir, but I've seen them do it with Samuel as well. As they kind of line him up as like an H back and hide him in the backfield, and then they sneak him
Yeah.
through the line and leak him out the other side. And so I'm interested about that too because as far as you're saying like the linebackers and get them moving and fake a run one way and have that guy sneak out through the line the other way. Um, I'm really interested in that because I think this you can get after this Ravens defense, especially right now. I don't know about like you said later in the year, but right now you can get after them through the air with some
Hmm.
miscommunication and Brady's got a lot of that. He's been holding on to some, so I'm interested to
For sure.
see. And if the Bills can move up and down the field like they have and be efficient against this defense, watch out because there's not a lot of better defenses, at least personnel wise, that they're going to face.
100% agree. Absolutely.
All right, well, let's do another quick ad read, and then we'll get into a couple player props, and then we'll get our blueprints to victory and our score predictions, and I'll get you out of here. All right,
Sounds
so
good, man.
listen up, sports bettors. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for a 30th year of sports action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 125%, BetUS offers the opportunities to cash in on all your favorite sports, including live action and the chance to build your own prop. That's right. If you're looking for live in-game betting, incredible props, daily odds boosters, a top-tiered racebook, and an unbeatable casino experience, look no further. We've got it all. What about fast payouts and exceptional one-on-one customer service? We've got that too. Sign up now to betus.com by clicking on the link below and use the promo code DEUE, DUE, to get the greatest sign-up bonuses. Our account managers are available 24/7 to help you get started on the best action at 1-800-792-3887. That is 1-800-79-BET-US. BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook. I'll give a quick plug too. Their customer service is phenomenal. I know they're one of your sponsors as well. But yeah, if you have any issues, they are unbelievable to talk with. They handle it right away. We've had some minor stuff as far as like some having trouble finding some bets or wanting to do some parlays and stuff like that. You call them and they immediately get it squared away and fixed for you. So they've been great to work with. So check them out. And use code DEW. You get your first three deposits. You get bonuses. The first one's 150%, and the next two are 125%. So check them out. All
Can't
right.
go
So
wrong,
player
man.
props. Yeah, you can't go wrong using them. Um, Player props. You want to go first, or you want me to start it off?
I'll allow you. Go
All
for
right.
it.
So I'll take the easy one. The Ravens pass defense has allowed the most in the NFL at 291.7 yards. Josh Allen's current line is over 231 yards. All three quarterbacks that have played the Ravens defense have cashed that line. So I'll take Josh Allen over 231 as an easy one.
Hmm. Yeah,
You got any?
I I'm gonna go Khalil Shakir anytime touchdown. I think there's a trend to get
Ooh,
him the ball. Yeah,
yeah.
I find I just have so much faith in him. I feel like there's been concerted efforts to get him the ball, especially in key spots. If it's from like 10 or 15 yards out, those little like that drag route he ran was just so nice.
Oh,
And I feel like Josh is so dialed in mechanically with the accuracy of delivering things for Shakir to make Yak happen that I just find that I feel like last week's game will definitely be a start. I don't want to say anything in absolutes. I don't like absolutes, but I could see it being the start of Khalil Shakir going on a streak where he's getting like yak base touchdowns. So I'm going to say Khalil Shakir anytime touchdown story. That'll be one I present to you on your program.
beautiful. Yeah, I love it. He's also tied right now with the longest consecutive catch streak. So he's at 27 consecutive targets that he's caught the ball. He's tied with Michael Thomas for the most in NFL history. Well, I guess it's going back since
Wow.
1991 when they started tracking targets. So look for that this game. He needs, to catch his next target, and he'll have the record alone. So my next one is I'll stay with Khalil Shakir. I got him over 3.5 receptions and over
Okay.
40 yards. I think
Oh,
those
I
are
like that.
two low bars. The 3.5 receptions, I think, especially. He's been over that the last two games, and we said over the middle is where I think they're going to want to attack him. And then I got Dalton Kincaid as well, the same, over 3.5 receptions and over 40 yards. I think those two are pretty easy and should be keys for this game.
I was about to say Dalton Kincaid as well. Yeah, I fully suspect that he's going to have over 40 yards. Will it be 100 yards? Will he finally break that mold? I don't know. Just because I do think, again, with the spread of this offense, it's hard to see him really hit like a triple digit number. I think any receiver for that matter, unless they have like multiple explosive receptions. But Kincaid
Oh,
over 40 feels like a one I would be comfortable taking if I were a betting man.
yeah, I mean that's one that's interesting for me for Kincaid. You bring up a good point for like more of the explosive stuff. Like I wanted to see him more like work down the seam and some of those post routes and stuff like that. And we'll see if we see that because I think you get him running, downfield like that, and he's really tough cover. You just haven't seen it too much yet. I know they really like getting him the ball quick and in space and his yak ability. He transitions so fast from catcher to a runner, but I'd like to see him get, down the seam some, and this could be a game for that because that's how you're going to see him get the big yards because When he's catching the ball at the line of scrimmage, I mean, yeah, he's getting 8 yards or 10 yards, but again, you're asking him then to get 10 to 12 catches to get over 100 yards. So
Hmm.
tough ask. I got Josh Allen over 29.5 rushing yards.
Okay.
Um, I feel like this could be a game where he's going to need to. It's not something we necessarily touched on, but I'm wondering how they're going to play him and if they're going to spy him too much. Running a zone and then having a spy is tough to do. So we'll see if they do it, or if they just try to contain rush. But he's always good no matter what you do against him to break 1 or 2 runs and then have a couple design runs as well. So I got Josh over 29.5.
I could see it. I don't know. I'm torn on that because I feel like it might just be like a handoff game or a heavy passing game, but because like
Yep.
the Jaguars were basically, I don't know why, but leaving the middle of the field wide open. So he was having
Yep.
explosive running in that game, but it feels like his running has been very controlled when he's facing disciplined defenses. I don't know if I'll take the over on that one, but I'd love it, obviously, as a Bills fan. And I have to ask you for your show, are we allowed to do props for the other team as well, or is this Bill specific? Because there's one I
Yep.
saw that I kind of think is like easy money if you want to bet on it, and it's Justice
Yep.
Hill over 14.5 receiving yards.
Yep.
I think it's gonna
I like
be
like
one.
2.5 receptions too.
What was the reception count for him?
2.5.
I, yeah, like I think Justice Hill has been used out of the backfield well, and I could totally
Yep.
see him. I don't know about the receptions for me. Maybe I could definitely see him having three, but even if not, I see him getting like one early game screen from Lamar that goes for like 15 yards, like right
Yep.
outside, and that's like an easy cash in. Like that one to me just feels like I would be so absurdly confident in taking that. And I speak things out of existence. So actually, maybe you shouldn't take it because I'm so confident in it that it'll probably not happen, even if you bet the mortgage on it. So, but if I had to
Well,
take
I
one, I
feel like
would
that one
say,
too is like that one's game script specific too. I feel like as
mm-hmm,
far as if we're saying that the Bills are successful in limiting the rush, or even just if they get force the Ravens to pass as far as they get out to an early lead, that's where you're going to see Justice Hill get more snaps
yeah,
and get those chance at receptions. An easy one I've been doing for the Bills is just Ray Davis and Ty Johnson over their receiving totals for the same reason. It just takes one route and they get over,
literally.
their yardage. So I really like that one for Hill.
Yeah, it just feels like one that you could like sprinkle at the bottom, or if you just wanted to throw a few bucks on it. I feel like that's like one of the low risk payouts, but one that they seem to do every week. There's like one Justice Hill big receiving play that gets you like a,
Yep.
like a 13 to 15 yard gain. So I mean, the way they've used him in the screen game and the fact that he's kind of that receiver back for them, it just feels like it would be a gimme.
No, I agree with you. All right. Well, normally this is the part where we do our blueprint to victory, and then we have our guest who's from the opponent give their blueprint to victory for the opposing team. So you and I can just do the Bills one if you want. If you want to do what you think the Bills offense or defense of blueprint is, and then I'll give the opposite. So give like two, points of if that happens, you think that's key for the Bills to win on offense or defense.
Yeah, so I'll start defense going to offense. For Bills defense, it's as simple and cliche, but contain Lamar, defend the perimeter, and stop letting that Ravens rushing offense be multiple. Because for me, the biggest thing is, like I said to you before, that offense is at its best when it can have every asset in its repertoire to be able to thrive. Like if they can let Lamar go to the edges and run and keep and be able to like trick a defense because it's undisciplined and not ready for him to take that ball to the edge, take that away, fluster him. Don't allow him to feel flexible when it comes to his options because I find that that's where everything else stems from this Ravens offense. It could be so good when that works, but if you can stop that just by like again maintaining your gap, not allowing Derrick Henry to break through the middle, like if Lamar keeps you bear down on him and seal that edge right away. If you're able to do that, I think that this defense who's his favorite. I cannot answer that right now, but I actually do have one, but I'll wait. Um, I lost my train of thought. Damn it, student. But I was gonna say, I think if you can take away really the Ravens RPO, the Lamar PO, and be able to stop them from having that multiplicity, that's where you have success. Because again, it's not a knock on Lamar as a passer, but anytime you can make an offense one dimensional is when it plays right into your hand. And so I'm going to say that for the defense because I do have a lot of faith in our boundary corners. I have a lot of faith in the secondary. It's really just how you stop this Ravens rushing offense. That's where I'm going to go with that. And then flipping it over to offense, I mean, pick apart the zone and read and react, man. Don't allow those four-man pressures to hit home. Don't take bait to anything they try to throw at you. They are not going to blitz you very often. I don't think that trend changes all that much if Pierce can't play. I think they're going to try and drop back into coverage, and they're going to try and fluster you with a four-man front and have kind of that style where just like, even though they're not sending extra bodies, you're feeling the pressure in the pocket, and they're going to try and hurry you up. So maintain that really solid blocking that you've had the first few weeks. And I think Josh Allen will have the vision to let plays develop to a point where whether it's good scheming by Joe Brady to have someone leak into a soft spot of the zone and Allen's arm strength to navigate it and get it, or just be able to let him extend the play and be explosive in that regard. And I think it's demoralizing for a defense that's playing zone to not be able to really get a team off the field, even if they're defending it well. This is how you do it up front. Keep pass blocking well, let Josh see the field, and let Josh pick apart the zone. I think you have a great chance in both of those regards. I think both are realistic, and I think that that's how you beat the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday Night Football. And my favorite GIF, by the
Awesome.
way, sorry. I have to answer that question too. There's a GIF of a dude whose friends are feeding him cereal and they pour the milk into his mouth and he can't like take it all at once and it explodes. And I'll send it to him later so he can see what I'm talking about. I don't know if he knows what GIF I'm describing, but that's the one I'm talking about. And it's GIF. It's not GIF. I don't care if the creator called it GIF. It's GIF. Graphics interchange format, not
Yes,
graphics interchange format.
I'm on the
Graphics.
same boat as you.
G.
Yep.
G
Yep.
graphics. So sorry. I had to went on that
I'm
rant. I
I'm
had to say that.
I'm gift too, so I'm right there with you. All right, he's got one more for you. So he says he means rabid, not rapid. So
How do you balance pragmatic analysis with rapid fandom? It's just like I like football, dude. And I like talking about the Bills and I like being a Bills fan, but I like the sport enough to praise the people, the teams I don't like, and to like objectively analyze each one. Like I don't like anyone in the AFC East, but I'll tip my cap to a team that's in the AFC East because I like football. I like when football is fun. I like when teams are explosive. If that has to be the Dolphins, even if I hate it, it has to be the Dolphins. Like if you have a love for the game, your fandom, I think it matters. I think it helps you watch the game with a certain lens that makes it fun for you. But that doesn't mean you can't be objective. Like giving flowers and objective analysis to me makes it more fun and makes sports discourse far more healthy than the just the poor state of it right now. So I hope that answered your question, student. And it's gift.
so to tack on to your blueprints to victory points, I have some like a little off the wall ones as far as some influences on the game. I think this ref crew is an interesting one for us. They
Mm,
call the least amount of offensive holding out of any of the crews the last couple of years, and I think that's something interesting because the Ravens have been a little susceptible to offensive holding penalties, and that goes into my next point or my key for the Bills is you have to cause some negative plays on this Ravens offense. You cannot allow them to get third and shorts and first downs on second down. You want to get them in long and late downs and force Lamar to have to drop back and throw. And to do that, you have to get after them on first and second down. And so for me, I think part of that is penalties and getting some, false starts and some holding penalties. So
hmm
um, I'll be interested to see on that. I know we don't like to say that the refs have too much influence, but that is something interesting to me because it takes one hold with Derrick Henry, and it's all over. So for an
hmm
explosive play, or even Lamar as well. So that's something I'll be watching. And then the other one for me is turnovers on both sides. Both quarterbacks have been playing really clean, and I think that's the big one for me is you cannot make mistakes against either of these teams. They're both explosive, and you don't want to give away a possession, let alone field possession. So, Josh, just stay patient. Keep doing what you're doing. Take what the defense is giving you, and hopefully the defense can force Lamar or this offense into a turnover because I think they're going to be minimal this game.
And yeah, that's a great point about the repping crew and maybe being a little more keen to penalties, especially when you talk about a Ravens O line that might be a little banged up and having to rotate some guys in, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden like those miscues can happen. And it's week 4, you're starting to find your legs, but those penalty issues that you have early in the year can still linger. So pair that with the fact that you have like again banged up offensive linemen, guys that are subbing in. Maybe you turn a 1st and 10 into a bigger deficit, and all of a sudden, like Derrick Henry runs don't impact you as heavily, and like the 5 yards per carry there makes it a 2nd and 10. Like those types of things, I think are so integral for the Ravens. Like being disciplined when you run the ball that much matters so much. If they
Yep.
aren't, that's just a net positive for the Bills because we are more than
Yep.
happy to let you run the ball if you are at a terrible down and distance. Where the point where like, great, you had 2 straight runs. It's 3rd and 7. Like, what do you,
Right.
go for it, have fun. We would love to defend that. So that's a really good point about the crew. We don't like to give it power, but when a team is penalized often, especially on the offensive side of the ball, like you have to take note of that, especially if their whole goal is we want to run the ball effectively. You're not going to do that as effectively if you keep falling behind the chains. So, yeah, I like that point a lot. I think that's something I'll keep an eye on too.
All right. So, score prediction time. What do you got? Put you on the spot.
I honor a creed of one of my fellow Cover One members, and I do not do score predictions. I can't in good conscience because I am a jinx. I don't like jinxing it, but it's your show, so I'll try to find a happy medium, and I'll say that I hope both teams have fun, but also I'll say that I think it's I have a feeling that the Bills' chances in this game are higher than maybe like the national pundits and maybe like objective viewers are thinking. I think that's paired with some of Baltimore's injuries, and I also think that's paired with again the unpredictable nature of this Bills offense. Even if they don't have the greatest speed, even if they don't have a Stephon Diggs anymore, I think the guessing game they are making defensive coordinators have to follow is good enough for them to have success. And with Baltimore right now, not having McDonald anymore, and again, their new coordinator just trying to get things in a rhythm, I think this is a great game for Joe Brady to just keep them on their toes to the point where they're making mistakes. And even if they are playing the correct coverage, it's just not sound disciplined enough to the point where again generating more explosives on the ground and getting more yak. So I have a lot of confidence in the Bills in this matchup. And I think this is a game I still deem must win because being 4-0 in that stretch where you have the Texans and the Jets next, that would
Yeah.
be massive. That would be
Yeah.
huge. So,
Yeah.
you know, again, neither outcome would shock me, but I like the Bills in this game, and I'm hoping they win it. No, I'm sorry, I can't give you a prediction. I'm not.
No, you're
I
you're
I feel
good.
like it's a jinx.
Yeah. So before the season, I did a schedule prediction, and so for me, it was I had the Bills winning the first three games, and then this stretch comes up, and I actually had them losing all three in this stretch. Going on the road. So, um, obviously, as you see the season play out, it's things change, right? And I think you bring up a good point as far as where their defense is at right now and injuries and where our offense is at. I feel like I want to get in a track meet against this Ravens team. I want to put up points, right, and put the pressure on them to answer and have to score. I think you get out to a hot start against this Ravens team, and that's something that they haven't really faced. They're more known as the team that gets out to the hot start and
Hmm.
then fizzles at the end, rather blowing the fourth quarter leads. They have the most double digit leads blown in the NFL over the last 5 years. So for me, it's can we flip the switch on them a little bit and can we get out to a hot start like we have been, be efficient on offense, get points early, and force them to have to take more risk, throw the ball a little more. But I do think it's going to be a higher scoring game. So for me, I have the Bills actually winning this game. I have it 30-27.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and maybe Baltimore getting a late touchdown in there or a late field goal, but uh, I don't know. I could see this, being a low scoring game, but for me, I think these offenses are too good right now, and I think they're both efficient and they're going to move down the field. Baltimore's fine with grinding out long drives, and I think that's the opposite of what the Bills want. They want you to do long drives, but to make a mistake, and Baltimore just doesn't make a lot of those mistakes. So we'll be interested to see. It's going to come down to red zone for both teams and third down. Can you convert third downs? Can you keep them from converting third downs? And then can you score touchdowns in the red zone? But I think the Bills are the more efficient, better offense, and I think their defense has played better so far this year.
Hmm. Definitely agree on the defensive perspective. They've been very good despite the injuries. I would say if there was a game where I think those injuries could be exploited a little bit, it would be this one with the Ravens
For
trying to
sure.
attack the middle of the field. But I give a lot of credit to the coaching staff for making it look good. And if they get even like I take that play with a grain of salt as it is. If they're able to get competent, fine play over the middle of the field in this game, that's really all I need. And I think that's all they would
Yeah.
need too. And I'm going to give some flowers to Balin Spector. Is he the best? No, I think
Yeah.
Bernard is your starter for a reason. However, I've been really impressed with the way Spector's played over the past couple of
Yeah.
games. I think that he has such a quick trigger. I think in run defense, he could shed blocks really well and he could process really well. And I think in coverage, it hasn't been the greatest, but it also hasn't been the worst. And again, just with how that you have to shut this Ravens team down, I like Spector in this role. And I'm hoping that, in any opportunity where the Ravens would try to exploit the middle of the field, they just try to, whether it's drop a safety in, whether it's try to get their nickel to go across, whatever it may be. I think it could be exploited, but I love Spector for what he's doing right now. I hope he could stay on the field. And I had to shout him out because I feel like, he's taking on a really tough role and I think he's doing a good job with it. And I hope it keeps up, especially this Sunday.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, I feel like with him, it's always been, can he stay on the field? When he's
Hmm.
gotten the chance, he's played fine, and I think he's gotten better. He's obviously had a really good command of the defense. Everyone's been in good position for the most part. The communication's been really good.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, if we're going to shout out guys, I think Dorian has got to get a shout out, right? I mean, he's
Hmm.
played better, I think, each and every game. Last game, against the Jags, I thought he played really well in coverage. He had some really good dropbacks, really stayed disciplined. So that's going to be key this game. Both those guys can they still fire and stop the run, but can they, stay disciplined and play action and stay in the right drops for their coverage lanes.
Hmm.
So well, I'll get you out of here. You stayed longer than you said you were gonna, so I really appreciate it. Will you tell everyone where they can find you, what you're working on, when your show is, promote everything you want. This is your time, so
Yeah, I completely lost track. So I was having too much fun. But no, listen, I appreciate you having me here. This was a great time. Thank you for inviting me and letting me talk to you about the game here. But my name is Joe DeRosa. You can find me on Twitter at show_DeRosa, where I tweet about football and a bunch of other random stuff that you don't care about. And I host a show for Cover One on the Cover One Sports Network's YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter/X called Under Review every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I am doing a episode this Tuesday, still lining up the guest and everything, but doing an episode this Tuesday on the Bills September in review. I'm really excited. I do that every season where once the month wraps up, we go over everything that happened during that month and whether it was good, bad, what we needed to analyze. And I'm really, really pumped for doing it the first time this year. So Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. You can catch the show, Cover One's YouTube. But again, very much appreciate you having me here. This was a lot of fun. You guys are doing a great job over here and just, appreciate you letting me be on.
awesome, man. Thanks again, Joe. I really appreciate it.
For sure, man. Have a great rest of your night.
All right, thanks. You too. All right, so we got to do update our power rankings from last week, and then I have some what to watch for tomorrow for the Sunday slate, and then some prop bets and some things that I'm interested in while we sit around and wait for Bills football. But real quick, let me do an ad read, and then we'll get right to it. Remember when we took pride in the things we built, the things we grew? Remember when we put aside small differences to support one another? We can do it again, and it's not as hard as you think. This Christmas, say no to fake trees. They're made of lead and plastic in sweatshops overseas. Choose a traditional, sustainable, real tree grown by American family farmers in every state. We're not as divided as they say. Let's support each other again. The only way to ensure real Christmas is with a real Christmas tree grown here in America. So this Christmas, don't fake it. Go real. That way you will definitely have a really great Christmas holiday. Sponsored by the growers of real Christmas trees at Happy Holiday and Mackenzie Tree Farms. All right, so let's get into it. I've got updated reverse power rankings for the NFL. So normally we do it AFC and NFC, but tonight I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to put them both together and run through 32 through 1 and some interesting ones or some sliders or some. I'll give a little take on it. Feel free to comment on anything you disagree with too heavily. So right now I got Jacksonville at 32. I think they're just a team in disarray. We saw them last week. They definitely have the talent. They're way better than the 32nd team, but until they can come together as a team, play better on both sides of the ball, and win a game, I have them at 32. 31, I have the Giants. Um, they're a mess too, man. Daniel Jones, they just benched him. So we'll see if that helps with bringing in Drew Lock. But man, he just is not seeing the field well right now at all. They could not run the ball very well either. On Thursday night, I just don't have too much faith in that team right now. I like Brian Dable obviously a lot coming from Buffalo and Joe Shane, but man, that team's a mess right now. Um, at 30, I have Tennessee. Um, they played better last week. I think that defense has a chance to be pretty solid. I really liked them preseason, but Will Levis is just not playing winning football. He started to last week. He looked a lot better, but just way too many turnovers. I think he leads the league in turnovers right now. It's really hard to win football games like that. So I have Tennessee at 30. At 29, I have New England. Injuries are really killing them on both sides of the ball. It's hard, offensive and defensive line, with injuries. They were already, pretty short-staffed on both sides of the ball. So to have some major injuries there is why I have them at 29. That defense was giving them a really high floor, but with the D-line injuries, it's going to be really tough for them to keep winning. I do wonder how long until you see Drake May, but then again, putting him behind that O line is maybe not the best thing to start with. Carolina, I have them at 28. With Andy Dalton in there, I think he gives that offense a way higher floor. Um, and I think they have the weapons. It sucks that Thielen got hurt and he's going on IR. The connection between him and Dalton, I think, was going to be really nice to see. But I still think they have enough on offense to be a competent team. It's not much of an upgrade going from what Bryce Young was. I mean, he was looking like one of the worst quarterbacks we've seen in a couple of years, which is really saying something. But that offense was not doing anything. So I have Carolina at 28 with Dalton. I think it's gonna be an interesting one with them versus Cincinnati. Can they go in there? That defense hasn't looked great. Can Dalton sling it around a little bit against Cincinnati? I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina's competitive in that game with how bad Cincinnati's looked. It'd be pretty crazy to see the Red Rocket go in there and beat Cincinnati. At 27, I have the Raiders. I don't know what to make of them. Maybe our guy Kevin on the network can educate me a little bit on what's going on with the Raiders, but that offense just doesn't have any rhythm to me. We'll see. Devontae Adams a little nicked up. We'll see what's going on with him, but I thought that defensive line was going to be better, especially against the run, and it just hasn't been good. So you can't stop the run. It's really hard to win in this league. So I have them at 27. I have Miami at 26. They just benched Skyler. Bench might be a harsh word. It could be because of the rib, but he looked terrible. So they got Snoop Huntley now coming in after being on the practice squad for a week. So we'll see what McDaniel's got as far as wrinkles for that offense. They got to do something because it's looking terrible. So right now, Miami at 26 until they can show something on offense. This is a big test for me with McDaniel. If he's supposed to be an offensive guru and an offensive specialist, like he's got to be able to scheme up something and with the weapons they have and move the ball. So we'll see if he can do something with Hunley. I was pretty disappointed to see how poorly Skyler played. Chicago, I have Chicago at 25. Um, Caleb's got to get more consistent. Um, he's not throwing the ball accurately. He's holding on the ball way too long. He's missing way too many wide open guys. So for me, until that offense can get going, I can't really have him too much higher. The defense is decent. It's I wanted to see more of it. I thought it would be better against the run. So we'll see. But right now, I have Chicago at 5. This whole next bunch of teams are pretty lumped together right now. We're only going off of a 3-game sample size, but there's a bunch of teams just lumped together right here in the middle. You can kind of order them however you want. I have Atlanta at 24. If Cousins can get more comfortable, and confident with his Achilles. I think that offense can be really something. But what does he have left? How much can he put on the ball? Can he get some more downfield throws going? He's got a good connection with Mooney, and get Pitts going and hopefully Drake London and that offense can really go. But I'm kind of worried about the offensive line injuries. That offensive line was arguably top three in football. So if they take a step back there and that affects the run game and the pass pro, I mean, you get some pressure on Cousins right now, and it's game over. His mobility is so down. So I have Atlanta at 24. I have Denver at 23. I think their defense has been nice. And they've been getting after the quarterback, and so that always helps. And then yeah, if they can get anything out of Bo Nix, I mean, everything's been short behind the line of scrimmage. So if he can get some more stuff down the field, they can start moving the ball. Also, that run game's been really disappointing. I don't know what happened to Javonte Williams. I don't know if the injuries just really have derailed him or what, but I expected more out of that run game. So right now I have Denver at 23. Indy I have at 22. Um, I think they go as Anthony Richardson goes. He's such a boomer bust player. I really thought AD Mitchell was going to do more. It really looked like he was open down the field a lot, and Anthony Richardson was just missing him. But he's kind of disappeared the last few weeks. So can they get that going again? And it's weird. Anthony Richardson's he's deeper or he's more accurate in deep balls over 20 yards than he is at throws at the line of scrimmage. So that's something that's really concerning for me with him. You need those easy button throws. It's something that you saw with Josh early on in his career too. Those swing passes, the flares, anything at the line of scrimmage, the short yardage throws. Josh struggled with until he got his mechanics fixed. And I think that's something that Anthony Richardson needs to do as well. And it's hard to be an efficient offense and a good offense when you can't make those short and intermediate throws. So I have Indy at 22. I have Cincinnati at 21. It's weird to have an 0-3 team at 21, but they still have all the pieces and the talent there. They're historically slow starting team. But man, if you go to 0-4, there's not a lot of examples of an 0-4 team coming back and making the playoffs. So they really got to step it up. They have Carolina, and man, they better win that game. That's all I got to say. They better win that game and go on a little bit of a run. I have them at 21 though because I think they can go on a run. That schedule's pretty soft. Um, and AFC North is kind of an interesting place right now with Cleveland not being as good as we thought, and Pittsburgh kind of jumping out to the early lead. I think they might take a step back eventually. So I have Cincinnati at 21 because I think they can go on a run and really jump back up in there. I have Cleveland at 20. Um, I'm concerned. I mean, Deshaun Watson looks terrible, um, and that defense just hasn't been as lights out as I thought. With Miles Garrett now being banged up, and that O line as well being injured. We'll see, but they go from a team arguably having the best roster in football or at least top three to you know being middle of the pack now with some key injuries. So we'll see if that Garrett injury really limits him. Um, that Cleveland team could be in trouble. They need something out of the quarterback position. I wouldn't be shocked if Deshaun Watson doesn't stay, quarterback there for much longer as far as starting this year. But again, they're paying him so much. It's tough to make a change. I have the Rams at 19. I think they're a way better team, but again, they're so injured right now. It's hard to um, know for sure what they really are, with Thup and Nakua being out. But man, I really love Sean McVay and Stafford, and they're just going to grind out some games. Their D line, I really like getting after the quarterback. They're young, so if they can keep developing and getting better, that's going to be a tough team. But again, they can't really sustain too many more injuries, or they're going to drop farther. I have Dallas at 18. I don't really put anything into that win against the Giants on Thursday. Like I'm worried about Dallas again. Like their O line is not good in pass pro. They can't run the ball again this year. Um, their D line is not dominating like I thought it would. They can't stop the run again. So I'm worried about Dallas. I don't think they're a great team. They're definitely not showing it right now. They're also so CD Lamb dependent. I don't want my $30 million a year wide receiver taking multiple carries in the backfield. So we'll see. I'm not a big believer in McCarthy. I said that to start the year. So we'll see how long he lasts there. I wouldn't be shocked if they keep losing some games and that seat gets real hot. 17, I have the Chargers. Um, again, like they've surprised early on, but is that a product of who they've played? Their defense has played better than I thought it would. Um, I worry about Herbert's health. He re-aggravated that ankle sprain, so we'll see there. Um, and I just wonder, if they can't play their exact game script, can they win in any other way? I feel like it's got to be, grind it out, low scoring game, ball control, they control the clock. Um, and I don't think you get up early on them, and I think it's game over. So I have the Chargers at 17. 16, I have Arizona. It really, for me, comes down to their defense. Can their defense do enough to let their offense, win games? I really like their offense, and I think they're going to score points. But and I think they're going to struggle to close out games. Um, with that defense and that D line specifically. So we'll see. It was disappointing last week, but I still really like that offense, and I think they're gonna still win enough games, especially with all the turmoil in the NFC and the AFC or the NFC West. I have San Francisco at 15. I know that's like really, really low for a lot of people, and again, this is power rankings for right now. It's just injuries for me right now, and they're just not clicking. Um, on offense, they're not as efficient as I wanted to see. Purdy hasn't looked as good as I've wanted to see him. I think that a little bit they got exposed against Flores and his pressure style defense. So I'll give them a couple weeks to get healthy and see how they bounce back from that. But right now I have them at 15. I have Baltimore at 14. I think they could easily climb up and be one of the best teams in football. But again, they have question marks as well. Their offensive line has not been nearly as good as it needs to be. And then now they have some injuries where they've had to shuffle around guys. So we'll see how they look on Sunday night. If they go out and handle Buffalo's D line and they win that game, then I think they'll be right back up in the top five, easily top 10 teams. But I worry about that. And then the defense, just way too much miscommunication. They're the worst pass defense in the league right now. And so we'll see. The jury's still out with them on if they can get that together. So much turnover in the defensive coaching staff. So I wonder if they're going to be able to have the answers and make the adjustments to get that defense righted. 13, I have Tampa Bay. I think they're a solid team, but they're not spectacular. I don't think they run the ball as well as they need to. Detroit kind of dominated them in that game. Goff had some bad throws, and just Goff didn't play very well. And they still way outgained Tampa Bay and probably should have won that game. But I think they're a solid team. They're going to be scrappy. They're going to get wins. And so I have Tampa Bay at 13. I have Washington at 12. I think they're the surprise probably for people right now. Jaden Daniels is playing fantastic. Two straight games without punting is really impressive. Um, and so we'll see. I mean, do they get figured out? I think it's also partly the competition. Um, so it's early, but I like what Washington's got going for them. And Cliff Kingsbury has shown to get off to hot starts as a coordinator, and then he just spams the same stuff and people figure him out, and then he doesn't really have the counters to it. So we'll see if they answer. They've kind of been relying on Jaden to make some really amazing plays, and I don't know if that's necessarily sustainable. So we'll see. 11, I have Philly. I want to really like Philly, but it's really hard with the way they're playing. Jalen just hasn't taken that next step as a passer, and when they really rely on him, he struggled. And his splits without AJ Brown are just insane. When AJ Brown's on the field, he's such a better quarterback. And when AJ Brown's off the field, that offense really struggles outside of Saquon. I think Saquon and that old line gives them a really nice floor. Um, but can they get enough out of that defense? I'm not sure. AJ Brown comes back, Devonta Smith comes back, and we'll see. But with both of them being out, I have Philly at 11 because of that. 10, I have the Jets. Um, I don't know what to make of the Jets right now. It's hard to give them too much credit for beating Tennessee and for beating New England. Um, you know, they scored essentially twice on defense and special teams against Tennessee. And then New England was just a disaster on both lines. So how much credit do we give the Jets for those wins? But they're wins. They got a good roster, like we've said, but their depth is not there, especially on the O line. I really worry. You've already seen them get banged up with Simpson, and he's going to be out for a little bit. So we'll see. I worry about Aaron Rodgers. All the hits he's going to be taking, and his mobility. So I think they're a good team, but what is the ceiling for them? Right now, I have them at 10. With Green Bay at 9. Part of this is just waiting to see Love come back and how healthy he is. I think it's a really solid team, and I think they're going to be, there at the end in the NFC. But I want to see Love come back and play well and not re-aggravate his knee. I thought the Willis thing was really nice. He played really, really well and efficient, and it shows Lafleur's ability to adjust the offense to who's leading it. It's kind of the opposite of what you've seen with McDaniel in Miami. So I think that gives Green Bay a way higher floor, and then also their defense has just been playing much better. So I have them at 9. I have Detroit at 8. I think Detroit will figure it out. For me, it's been Goff. It looks like he's rushing his drops and just playing a little quick. For a guy who's been known so much for his accuracy and his rhythm and timing, it just hasn't seemed like it's there right now. Like if you go back and watch some of his throws, like his first two steps are nice and smooth, and then all of a sudden he taps his feet and tries to rip the ball, and it's just not an accurate ball. And so I think he'll get that figured out. Um, you know, it is interesting to see Ben Johnson have to adjust a little bit, and I'm wondering if he will figure it out. To me, he gets a little cute, and with that team, just line up and just smash the other team, man. Just run the ball with Monty and Gibbs, and then where's Laporta been? I haven't seen those seam routes and those play action passes over the middle of the field to Laporta and I'm on Ross. So I think they'll get it figured out. But they're going to go as Goff goes, and if Goff can get comfortable back there again, I think Detroit's going to be a really tough out. So I have them at 8 right now. I have New Orleans at 7. Um, I don't know. I hate to put too much belief in Derek Carr. I think the less you ask him to do, the better. Which I don't. It's not saying that he's a terrible quarterback. I just don't think he's a volume thrower. For me, I want him to be, play action, and I like his deep ball and take a couple shots a game, and bootleg him and roll him out and let him see the field and get rid of it. I don't want him dropping back, 30 plus times a game. So for me, it's a game script for them. Can they get out early? Can they run the ball? That O-line's played well, but again, injuries, like I worry with McCoy getting hurt at center with them, and then their defense gives them a high floor, but that only goes so far. So we'll see with New Orleans when they play some stiffer competition. But again, like I don't necessarily think the NFC South is the best, and then the NFC right now has got a ton of teams kind of in this turmoil phase right now, trying to figure themselves out and going through injuries. So can New Orleans stack some wins and set themselves up? Yeah, sure. So right now I got them at 7. I have Houston at 6. I like Houston. I like CJ Stroud, but I don't think he's playing great football right now. I don't think that O line is handling blitz pressure really well and stunts, and that's kind of sped him up a little bit. I also still think they're trying to figure out how they want to spread the ball around, and so that's going to be a big thing for me. Is they have a lot of weapons, but that's a lot of mouths to feed, and we know one of them really wants the ball. So we'll see if they can get that figured out. They have the talent, um, and if they get it together, they're going to be a tough out. So I have Houston at 6, and we'll see if they can stay there or climb a little higher. The next 2 weeks for them are going to tell us a lot. Um, I have Pittsburgh at 5. Man, Mike Tomlin, he just always has it. He just always has that team playing tough. That defense is playing great. And then, they're just not asking Fields to do too much. Um, and so for me, they're going to be a tough team. They kind of remind me of like a Bill Belichick New England. Obviously minus without the Brady, but as far as like the style they want to play on defenses, they're going to play tough defense, make you grind it out, force you into mistakes, and then have short fields and score some points that way. Um, and so yeah, you fall into their game script and you're in trouble. It's kind of a lot like the Chargers want to be, but I think the Chargers are a year or two away from their roster being there, whereas Pittsburgh's way farther along in their maturation process with their roster. It's just they got to run the ball, and that O line's got to stay healthy. You see kind of a theme here with a lot of these teams. I think if they can do that and don't ask, Justin Fields to have to drop back and do too much, I think they're going to be fine and they're going to win. Their typical 9-10 games. Um, I have Seattle at 4. Um, we'll see with them. I'm still not sure. I mean, they're winning games. Not the prettiest. They definitely handled Miami at home, but again, I don't know what to make of that Miami team. They had to go to overtime against New England. Granted, it was on the road, but that was a tough game. So we'll see. I like Mike McDonald a lot. I think as the defense or as the year goes on, I think that defense is going to get better and be tougher to play against. He presents a lot of different looks, and that defense is going to be really multiple, but it's probably going to take some time for it to come together. And then that offense, I I just it's gonna come down to the O line, man. They got to get Walker healthy and get that run game going. I think it's a big step back with having Zach Charbonnet in there instead of Walker. So if Kenneth Walker can get healthy, I think that goes a long way because they really want to pound the rock and then play action with Gino. And Gino's really good off play action and with the deep ball. But again, you don't want to ask Gino to drop back 35, 40 times in a game. Minnesota at 3 right now. I just love that mix of Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. I think they're a really unique matchup for teams. Teams just aren't used to seeing a Flores defense. And if you're not equipped to handle the exotic looks and the exotic blitzes, it really throws off your rhythm and timing. And I think that's why you see him so successful against the Shanahan tree. He's one of the few coaches who consistently, present really tough matchups for the Shanahan tree, and I think it's because he's so good at disguising what he wants to do and showing cover zero and then backing out to cover three and it really confuses people. You saw it with Stroud and then you saw it with Purdy. So I think that gives them a really unique advantage against opponents. And then Kevin O'Connell on offense is just so solid right now, and he's got Darnold playing really confident football. And with the weapons they have, getting Addison back now and Justin Jefferson, and then they've been able to run the ball well. They're a really tough matchup right now. So I have Minnesota at 3. I have Buffalo at 2. I think this is a big week for Buffalo to show that they can go against a power running team. A lot of the media have been saying that their run defense isn't very good, but I think a lot of that is how Buffalo has played some of these opponents and purposely presented light boxes and sacrificed some run defense to limit explosive plays in the passing game. So I think this is a unique matchup, and we'll learn a lot about the Bills' defense, and then as well as the offense, man. If they can stay efficient and score 30 points for a fourth straight game against this defense, watch out, man. This Bills team is finally a full team on both sides of the ball. I have Kansas City at 1. It's hard to not have them at 1, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and they're not playing their best football. They'll tell you that, but that's probably the scary part. They're this era's New England. Where September they're kind of feeling it out, figuring it out, just trying to get wins, trying new things. And then they start getting better in October, and then November and December. They're in full form. So they traditionally always don't look pretty, anyways. They're historically not a good team to cover the spread. They play tight games, but they pull them out at the end. I'm interested to see if they can get Kelsey going and what's going on with him. Is it just game scripts that haven't been going his way? or is Father Time finally catching up to him? So we'll see, but I'm sure they're fine with him not getting a ton of reps right now as it is, and saving him for later in the year. So that wraps up our rankings. So what to watch for tomorrow, as far as for AFC East games. The first one I have is Denver at the Jets. So I'm interested to see how that Denver defense presents problems to the Jets. They've played well. I want to see how they can get after that Jets O line, man. If you can light up Aaron Rodgers, I'm interested to see how they handle that because the Denver defense has been getting after the quarterback, and then I like what they have, on the outside. I think Garrett Wilson, is Patrick Surtain going to match up with him? I don't think Surtain's played his best football so far this year, but I'll be interested to see how they stop that. And then, I think the big thing is if you can stop Brees Hall, you got a real chance against that offense. So we'll see how Denver does. They got to travel to New York, and they lose that home field advantage that they have. So we'll see. As far as props go for that game, I like Brees Hall reception yards over 27.5. Brees Hall anytime touchdown. I like Garrett Wilson over 4 receptions, and then I like Tyler Conklin over 40 receiving yards. It's all Jets props for me. I think they're just more consistent on that side of the ball. It's hard to trust what Denver's doing on offense right now, especially against that Jets defense. I kind of worry about Bo Nix against that Jets defense. I could see him doing a lot of his stuff behind the line of scrimmage again, and I worry about their ability to move the ball against that Jets defense. Right now, I want to run the ball against the Jets, and Denver just hasn't been doing that too well. Next up, it's New England at San Francisco. A tough spot for New England. They got to go on the road. West Coast, it's a 405 kick at least. But man, New England's lines are banged up. Um, can they score? Can New England score? And then can they score, enough? I really, really worry about that. Um, I do have a New England prop. I do like Antonio Gibson, over 27.5 rushing and receiving yards. I think that bar is really low. Um, they've been giving him some opportunities, and that's a good matchup for him. I could see them, him getting more snaps as they're trying to play catch up. And then I have Purdy over 9.5 rushing yards and over 229.5 passing yards. I think they're going to be able to throw the ball against New England, especially over the middle. Um, and so I look for maybe Ayuk will finally have a game, but Juwan Jennings, and I think that 229 bar is pretty low. So Purdy over 9.5 rushing yards and over 229 passing yards. Finally, in the AFC East, I got Tennessee at Miami. Interested to see what Snoop Huntley looks like for Miami. Um, he hasn't been there long. I gotta think McDaniel's running a specific plays for him. That offense is really tough to run for a quarterback. You saw Skyler really struggle with it because they asked the quarterback to do so much with rhythm and timing. Like a lot of that pre-snap and post-snap movement, you don't realize how much timing as a quarterback you have to have. Like there is a cadence to that and a rhythm, and it takes a lot of reps. And Tua doesn't get enough credit for how well he runs that. And so I think that's what Skyler really struggled with. And then also you have to hit your drop and let it rip. And you're throwing to space. You're not going to a spot or to a man who's open. You're trusting that they're running the right route and the timing is correct. So I don't think Snoop Huntley is that kind of quarterback either, a rhythm and timing quarterback. So I'm interested to see what McDaniel, has up. Is he going to run more RPO? Is he going to, do some interesting things in the run game? Because I'm worried about that pass game. And they got to do something because it's looked ugly. And, to have Hill and Waddle out there and not be able to get them touches and yards just is crazy to me. Um, so yeah, I mean, Tennessee's been playing better. Levis played better last week. If Levis goes out and plays well, they could easily win that game. And Miami's season is going downhill fast if they blow this game at home. So it's a Monday night football game. It's the early kickoff window like Buffalo had last week. Um, I think Hill and Waddle's numbers numbers are very low in that game. Waddle's at over 36 and a half yards and Hill's at over 52 and a half. If Tua was playing, those would be hammers, locks, you know, but it's tough to say with Huntley in there and can you get those guys the ball? But really it just takes, one or two receptions and they'll both get over that number. So if you're looking for some action in that game, I would say either one of those numbers are pretty low. Also, H-hand receiving yards is a pretty easy one. Um, I want to say it's at like 40 yards right now. As far as going to AFC matchups, Cincinnati at Carolina, that's one I kind of touched on. I'm interested in that just because I want to see the Andy Dalton revenge game. Cincinnati's got to go to Carolina. I do worry about Adam Thielen being out. I think that was kind of like his security blanket a little bit, but they still got some pieces there. And Dalton's not afraid to sling it. He knows this is his opportunity just to let it rip. So, and that's Cincinnati defense hasn't been great, especially on the outside. So I'm interested. I think Carolina could easily win that game. I wouldn't be shocked. But Cincinnati's desperate, man. 0-3, you cannot go to 0-4 in that game. So I'll definitely be watching that game in the early window. As far as bets go, I have Andy Dalton over 231 and a half passing yards. Um, he had that in the first half last week. I think he's just going to sling it again. He's got nothing to lose. And then Zach Moss over 11 and a half receiving yards. They've been giving him a lot of touches. They really like him. He's been getting a large portion of the snap share. I think Brown's been better as far as a runner and averaging better yards per carry, but I think they've been giving Moss some chances, and really that's one catch, and he'll get over that. Um, Next game, I have Jacksonville at Houston. That's another big one for the AFC. Like, can Jacksonville do anything? Is their season over? Are we looking at new coaching staff if they lose that game? Especially if it's another blowout. On the flip side of that, if they wake up and play football like we know they can, like the talent that they have, that could write their season right around. Knocking off Houston at home. Houston's coming off, a rough stretch for them as it is. Blowout against Minnesota. So we'll see. I think Houston needs to get things going. Um, but that should be a good watch. I have Diggs over five receptions in that game. I think he's getting a bigger target share, especially on the short routes. Um, we saw Jacksonville's corners. They like to play man to man, and they struggled. And I think Diggs is very good against man to man, especially in the short areas. So I could see him getting a lot of targets. I don't necessarily know if his yards are going to be there, but I think he'll get the receptions. Nico Collins is a little banged up. He said he's going to play, but I wonder if he'll be on a snap restriction at all, or what's going on with him. So I think that helps Diggs get even more of the target share. Next game is Pittsburgh at Indianapolis. I'm not sure this will be the best game to watch, but I'm definitely intrigued to see how Anthony Richardson does against that Pittsburgh front, because it could be a tough day for him if Pittsburgh's getting after it. At the same time, like I do wonder that vertical game, man, can he get outside the pocket a little bit and let it rip and hit a couple deep balls against Pittsburgh? So I'm interested there. Um, my pick for player props in that game is Alec Pierce over 23 and a half for his long reception. He's hit it in his last three games. So I think that's really that offense. It's boomer bust, and Anthony Richardson has really liked him. So I could see him hitting Pierce for a decent one down the middle there. I don't necessarily trust Pittsburgh in the middle of the field or with how they want to use Pierce. I really like some of the routes they've run, and I think there's a chance for for Pierce to go off a little bit in that game. Um, Next game's Kansas City at the Chargers. It's tough, man. Chargers are banged up. How healthy is Herbert? Um, and then also Derwin James getting the suspension for a game. I know, of course, he's out against Kansas City. I think that's a tough spot. Can the Chargers just run the hell out of the ball, control the clock, force a turnover or two against KC? I think that's their game script to win that game. Um, I do look for Kelsey to have a little bit of a bounce back. He's His props are so low right now. So I have Kelsey over 20 receiving yards. Um, so you got to think that's real low. I think some books you're going to have to do it at 25 yards. But I think he's going to get his a couple looks, and I think he'll get over that. Um, and then I like Riche Rice over 6.5 receptions. He's hit that every game. And he's definitely Mahomes' favorite target. And I think they line him up all over and in the slot. So I think he'll have a big game. If you want to have a fun bet in that game, I don't hate a Kelsey ladder bet in that game for receiving yards. With Derwin James out, I wonder who's going to cover Kelsey. And I think he's due for a breakout game. He's played well against the Chargers. So, I would love to do a 25, 40, 60, 80, 100 ladder with Kelsey and just stagger your bets as you go up. And that could be a fun one. It's definitely risky with how he's looked this year. But this if he doesn't do it this game, I don't know when, because this is a great matchup for him. So a Kelsey receiving ladder could be a fun one for that game. It might make cheering for the Chiefs palatable if they're feeding Kelsey, because I know I hate rooting for them. I live in Chiefs country, and it's pretty brutal. Um, I don't really have anything for the Chargers. Um, there's some Dobbins stuff in there maybe, but I don't know. I think that's too risky with the health of Herbert, and I think Kansas City's just going to stop the run in that game. But we'll see. If anything, they've been a little leaky, and so Dobbins could go off. Um, so we'll go over to the NFC now. Some interesting games. Minnesota at Green Bay. Um, man, I'm excited for that one, especially if Love plays. I want to see. He's so good last year, especially in the second half against the Blitz. He was phenomenal. So I'm interested to see how Flores plays that game. Like, does he want to do the sellout blitzes? Also, I wonder how mobile Love's going to be. That's part of why he was so good against the blitz. So if he's limited mobility wise, like is Flores going to get after him in that way? But I'm really interested in that game. I think that's a great game for the NFC North. Um, I do like a couple matchups in that game. I like Josh Jacobs going over 60 yards. Um, they've been pounding the ball with him, and I don't think that's going to stop now. Um, I definitely think that's a way they're going to try to counter the blitz. And Jacobs has been running the ball well. And then I have Justin Jefferson anytime touchdown and Justin Jefferson over 70 yards. Um, he's pretty much automatic in that. I think he's covered it in like 83% of his games, which is just insane. And then he's had a touchdown, I think in 7 of the last 8. So I like both of those. Next one to watch in the NFC is New Orleans at Atlanta. Um, again, like I touched on earlier, like that NFC South is just crazy to me. I think the the floor on that division is going to be higher than previous years. Where they were duking out, and it was like, is one team going to have a winning record and win that division? But I think there's going to be a couple of decent teams in there as far as New Orleans, Atlanta, and Tampa Bay. So we'll see. This is Atlanta's at home. They got to win this game. They can't keep dropping games. Uh, so I think this is a really interesting one for me. I want to see how Cousins does against that New Orleans defense, and then how's the New Orleans O line look with the shakeup they've had with injuries. Um, so in that game, I like Pitts over 3 receptions, and then I always like a Kamara anytime touchdown. They just give him so many looks in the red zone that I really like that one. Um, Neffy's asking me, what's my absolute lock for tomorrow? That's a tough one, man. So early in the season, I struggle. I look way too much at numbers and trends, and early in the season, the numbers just aren't there, right? Like we're building up usage rates and trends and things like that. So my first couple weeks are tough. Now we're starting to get into it a little bit, and week 4, and so there are numbers, usage rates, things like that, and so I like a lot of numbers. I think the books are still trying to figure that out as well, so you can find some sweet spots in there. Um, so it's hard to say like for one absolute lock. Let me think about it for a few minutes, and then I'll get back to you with an absolute lock. But yeah, right now the slates are just way too good. Like I'm probably gonna have like 15 parlays going tomorrow just because it's insane, and I'm a sicko a little bit at this part of the season. Like I think this part of the schedule is so soft. for books that you can really get them in weeks 4, 5, and 6 as they're starting to adjust and they're building their algorithms and their trends and some numbers are just way off. So yeah, yeah, I can definitely get pretty nerdy about it. Um, all right, so yeah, so for New Orleans, I like Kamara anytime, and then Atlanta, I like Pitts over 3 receptions. Um, I also wouldn't hate a Pitts anytime touchdown there too. They've tried to get him the ball a couple times in the end zone, so I wouldn't hate that. I just it's tough because Algier and Robinson really steal some of those touches that looks down there. Um, so next game's Philly at Tampa. Um, Tampa's been a little bit of a bugaboo for Philly as far as stylistically. I think traditionally Tampa's been able to stop the run, and you stop the run against Philly and force Jalen to throw the ball, and that's a way to win. AJ Brown still being out and Devonta being out. I think those are big for Tampa. I never have been able to love Tampa. I don't love their coaching, and I don't love Baker, but I think they could do enough. And being at home, and you got to win your home games. Um, so that one's interesting to me. I'll definitely be watching that game. I have some good friends that are Philly fans, so I will definitely be looking to root for Tampa Bay and hope that I can talk some trash to them. But in that game, I like Barkley over 70. Um, I think they just feed him too much. I don't think Tampa's run defense has been as good as it has been. And you can't really go wrong with a Barkley anytime either. Um, the one interesting one for me in that game too is Goddard. Some books have over adjusted to last week, some haven't. But where you can really get them is receptions. I've seen some at over 3.5, and so if you could find Goddard at 3.5 receptions, I think that's a pretty much a lock. Um, Washington at Arizona is the next one. If you love offense, that's the game to watch, especially mobile quarterbacks just getting after and making some pretty ridiculous throws. I think you're seeing Jaden Daniels get more and more confident and just letting the ball rip, and he's got some weapons to throw to. And then yeah, man, him and Kyler are about as dynamic as you get as far as scrambling and running. Um, I like Tyler in that game a lot. Washington's defense has not been great. A lot of new pieces, and they're still trying to figure it out. And Tyler's like really low, his numbers. I don't know why. Some books you can find his passing yards at 200 yards, and I really like him at over 1.5 touchdowns as well, passing. Um, I think both of those numbers are really low. So I'd be all over that. Um, I'm not too sure about the Washington side. Like I wanna I wanna be able to go with Daniels, but he's got such a limited track record, and then statistically he's been all over the place as far as running and throwing the ball. Um, so I struggle a little bit with that. I do like a James Conner in that game over 50. Um, I think that's a pretty easy one. Um, but I struggle with the Washington side of that game as far as uh, what to say Jaden's going to do in that game as far as passing the ball. If you want to do a running one, sure, but I think they did a pretty good job spying Josh. And so I'm wondering if they're going to have a similar game plan against Washington and spy him and make Jaden stay in the pocket and have to throw the ball. And so I'm interested to see how he does in that environment of having to sit in there and be patient and throw the ball. Um, so yeah, I think that's definitely gonna be a great game to watch. And stylistically, we'll see if Washington can adapt to what Gannon throws at them. Seattle at Detroit is the final one I got. Um, I want to see if Seattle can go into Detroit and and take Detroit's punches and win that game. I think that's where I'm really interested. So we'll see if they can do it. I have Monty as anytime touchdown, and then Zach Charbonnet anytime touchdown as well. I like both of them getting in the end zone. The rest of that game is really hard for me to tell. I don't know how Seattle's going to do traveling there, and I think Detroit's going to get back to pounding the rock and play action. So um, it's for me usage wise is going to be really tough. But I like Monty and Charbonnet as far as anytime touchdowns. As far as locks, man, I really like the Kyler one. Over 200 yards and 1.5 passing touchdowns. See, I like Jacobs over 60 and Diggs over 5 receptions. Um, and then I like anything Brees Hall right now. I think if you can get him a reception and rushing, with 75 or 100 yards, I think those are locks. And then anytime is pretty much a lock. And Garrett Wilson over 4 receptions is stealing money. And so, yeah, I think those would be my main plays. This slate's really good for tomorrow. Having a Sunday night game, I think is great. If you like betting, I think it's a fantastic slate. Um, Meffy, our one of our betting guys on no one to blame, likes Detroit minus 3.5 as a lock. I like them too at home, man. Bounce back. I think they match up well against Seattle. So I really like that. And then did you play Georgia plus 18.5 live? I did not. But man, are they mounting a comeback right now? I had a 7-leg parlay that I needed Ohio State and Michigan State to score over 42 points, and they did that. So if you notice me looking down a little bit, I was checking that to make sure I cashed that ticket. I did not have much action on this game. I had Bama. Uh, I think I had Bama plus 2.5 on a ticket with Boise State and Indiana on a little 3-teamer. So that one's looking pretty good. But I did not live bet because I was on the show. I've been slacking. Tomorrow definitely is a live bet arena. So if you're following Do Neffy on Twitter, or the Do Champions channel on Twitter, or myself, I'm sure we will be live tweeting some plays as the day goes on and as we try to kill time before the Bills game. Let's wrap this up. I just wanted to thank our guest, Joe DeRosa from Cover One. Really appreciate him coming on, dropping some knowledge on us. Um, it was really, really nice. He answered the call last minute, jumped on, and provided some great analysis. So I really want to thank him. I want to thank our show sponsor, Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Farms. Really appreciate them jumping on board with us. Make sure you get a live tree this year. Don't go for the fake ones. Get the live tree, get the smell. So much better. And check them out, Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Farms. And then I want to thank our network sponsors, BetUS. Use code DO for all your betting needs. And W Energy Drinks. So W.GG for their energy powder, Jitterless Energy. Check them out. Use code DO for 10% off. Next up, we got post game show. Will be Sunday night after the game. I think it'll be possibly me and Neffy doing that one. We'll see, but someone on the network channel will definitely be live after the game, giving breakdown and analysis. So definitely check us out. And then we'll be right back at it next Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, with the next episode of the Buffalo Blueprint. I will try to have a Houston Texans guest on with me, but never know. Last minute, we might shift and have a different guest on. So we'll see. Thanks again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe to Do Champions channel on YouTube and Twitter. And then also, please make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm Jake FB Data. Thanks again, everyone. Really appreciate you tuning in. Neffy's dropping the touchdown, UGA touchdown. Looks like they're going to cover that live bet. Nice job. Um, all right. Well, take it easy, everyone. Good to be seen. See ya next week.